Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the fascinating accounts and leaked data surrounding decades of unexplained aerial phenomena. Now, we all know the old sci-fi tropes, right? Unidentified flying objects being dismissed as optical illusions or weather balloons. But today, we're strictly going to look at a sequence of events that completely challenges that narrative. We're relying entirely on documented witness accounts, military investigations, and leaked intelligence data. So let's jump right into a massive mystery. What exactly connects a terrified 1970s Brazilian fishing village to a highly secure, modern American military base in Iraq? I mean, on the surface, those two locations and time periods have absolutely nothing in common, right? One is this remote coastal area during the Cold War, and the other is a 21st century intelligence hub in the Middle East. Yet, as we'll see, the behavioral patterns and the sheer technological impossibilities reported in both places point toward a single cohesive phenomenon. Chapter 1. The Colares UFO Attacks, a localized threat. To really understand the global picture here, we first have to start small. We need to focus on the intimate and frankly terrifying Colares UFO attacks in late 1970s Brazil. This was not a case of one or two people seeing a blurry light in the sky. According to the source material, hundreds of people in this region were physically injured by these objects. It got so severe that locals were literally fleeing their homes and abandoning the town out of sheer terror. Just listen to this testimony to get a sense of how visceral this was. An 18-year-old local named Aurora reported that while she was just washing dishes under a chestnut tree, she saw a massive rotating disc with colored lights on its edges. Suddenly, she was targeted by a red laser from the craft. She described the impact as feeling like a painful needle puncture, which was immediately followed by an intense burning sensation and a very distinct, unsettling smell of burning flesh. Decades later, she actually still bears 3 puncture marks on her body. And this perfectly illustrates how incredibly targeted these encounters felt. It wasn't just random shooting in the dark. Take another local woman, Laura, from the nearby area of Belém. She was looking at what she thought was a shooting star, only for a bright white light to aggressively dart toward her and strike her. Just like Aurora, Laura felt intense burning and was left with permanent physical marks. These craft were deliberately aiming at individuals, acting almost as if they were extracting samples. Chapter 2. Patterns of the phenomenon, connecting the evidence. Now, what's truly fascinating is how an investigator named George began to establish clear, undeniable patterns connecting these isolated attacks. He realized that by actually interviewing these traumatized locals, many of whom had never spoken publicly because they were terrified of being ridiculed, he could map out specific, recurring details. It wasn't just a collection of random ghost stories. There was a measurable physical methodology to how these UFOs operated. For instance, witnesses consistently reported distinct sensory details. The presence of these crafts was often accompanied by specific odors. Metallic, electric, or burning smells were heavily reported during the violent encounters. Fascinatingly, in cases where people alleged they were taken inside spaceships for medical procedures, they described a distinct, hospital-like antiseptic scent. Others reported calming floral scents right before feeling subdued. These recurring sensory details provide a really compelling layer of consistency across totally unconnected witnesses. And the physical evidence didn't stop at the victims. A local witness named Johnny, who frequently saw these objects while photographing animals on an island in Barcarena, actually recorded them. He documented fireballs making physically impossible sharp turns without shedding a single spark. They would hover silently, dart away at incredible speeds, and leave behind physical evidence, swirling, scorched patches in the grass that the locals ended up calling saucer nests. Chapter 3. Operation Prato. Military secrets and cover-ups. The sheer volume of these localized attacks inevitably triggered a systemic military response, launching a massive, highly classified Brazilian Air Force mission called Operation Prato. The military just couldn't ignore the fact that citizens were being harmed and the local infrastructure was collapsing from panic. They set up camps, brought in cameras, and spent months on the ground trying to figure out exactly what was terrorizing the airspace. But there is a glaring contrast between the official military stance and what researchers uncovered. The official Brazilian military record claimed it was just a brief 4-month investigation that concluded with no solid evidence, writing the whole thing off as mass hysteria. On the flip side, investigative journalists like Carlos claimed the exact opposite. He uncovered evidence of a massive, year-long cover-up involving intense secrecy, where military personnel were strictly controlled regarding what they could say to the public. This builds a genuinely chilling narrative around the operations commander, Captain Hollanda. For 2 decades, Hollanda towed that official, highly censored military line. But in 1997, he finally broke his silence in a tell-all interview describing huge UFOs that flew irregularly, swinging almost like pendulums in the sky. Tragically and highly suspiciously to researchers, Captain Hollanda was found dead by hanging just 3 months after giving that explosive interview.
Adding to the suspense, we have the testimony of civilian boat captain Russell. He was hired to ferry military personnel to the islands for Operation Prato, assured that it was a perfectly safe mission. Yet Russell claimed things turned so dangerous that just 2 weeks in, civilians were literally issued guns. Why arm civilians if there's no threat, right? Even wilder, he reported that military scientists on board, like one named Luciano, were monitoring screens showing crab trap-shaped crafts and actively trying to decode unknown alien languages intercepted right from the UFOs.
Chapter 4. The Missing Intelligence. What happened to the evidence? Well, as the dictatorship in Brazil ended, the military's grip on these secrets loosened slightly, revealing an absolute treasure trove of data. Bizarrely, much of this data was reportedly funneled directly out of the country to the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency. But the most crucial pieces of the puzzle seemingly vanished into thin air.
Take this number into account, 1,000. According to journalist Carlos, who managed to get his hands on some of the archives, there were over 1,000 pages of official reports detailing these encounters. Let that sink in. 1,000 pages filled with intricate military drawings, sworn testimonies, and photographs of the crafts. This wasn't a passing glance. It was a deeply documented, bureaucratic record of an ongoing phenomenon.
Yet, incredibly, an alleged 16 hours of crucial military video investigation footage simply vanished. Poof! When insiders were pressed on where this massive archive of video evidence went, they claimed it was completely confiscated by federal intelligence agencies, specifically pointing fingers at the FBI and CIA. The most undeniable proof, hours of captured video of these crafts operating, was buried.
Chapter 5. The Leaked Jellyfish UFO, a Modern Global Implication. This deep historical context brings us right into the modern era, where leaked data is shifting our understanding of these claims to a massive global scale. Because what happened in Brazil in 1977 wasn't an isolated incident that just went away. The technology, the secrecy, and the bizarre nature of the crafts are still being recorded today. But now, it's our modern military dealing with them. To connect the dots between Johnny's Brazilian island and modern intelligence sightings, we have to ask one very specific question. Why are these objects continually drawn to water? Johnny speculated that the water around his island acted as an energy conductor for the crafts. Fast forward to today, and the U.S. Navy is constantly reporting crafts dropping into and emerging from our oceans, much like the infamous Tic Tac incident. Former U.S. Defense Officer Christopher Mellon, someone with top-level clearance in the Senate Intelligence and Armed Services Committees, suggests a chillingly logical theory. He points out that with our planet being predominantly water, our oceans serve as the ultimate undetectable hiding spots for advanced technology. If a non-human intelligence wanted to operate on Earth without constant detection, the deep oceans are the perfect, impenetrable base of operations. Which brings us to a recent unauthorized leak from a U.S. intelligence base in Iraq. This video, recorded by security personnel tracking the object on thermal cameras, shows a terrifying jellyfish-shaped UFO hovering right over the base. What makes this footage so incredibly unsettling is that the object was completely silent and was actively shifting its temperature on the thermal cameras, alternating from hot to cold as it glided through the air. It's a piece of technology unlike anything in the known human arsenal, tracked directly floating over a highly sensitive military installation. So the crucial point we are left with is this. If historical accounts, like the violent attacks in Colares and leaked modern military footage of jellyfish UFOs, both suggest they are hiding in our vast oceans, what else remains submerged in the dark? We've only mapped a fraction of our ocean floors. If these vast waters are truly a sanctuary for advanced, unknown technologies, we really have to wonder, are we the sole owners of this planet, or are we just sharing it with something that prefers to stay beneath the surface?